everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. This is Emily Sicorsi, and I'm joined by Justin Foster.
Good morning, everyone.
Together we're the
Or,
co-founders. Oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say, or whatever time it is when you listen to this later.
Yes. Together we're the co-founders of Root and River, and we welcome you today and thank you for taking the time to listen in on our webinar. Our topic today is, when should I start thinking about my brand? We came up with this topic in many discussions, and mostly sprang from discussions with startups, and they often come to us later in the process of their startup, and so they wonder when they should have started thinking about brand, because at that point it kind of, the rocket has already launched, and now they're adding some boosters to their fuel. So that's kind of where the idea came from.
Yeah, and I think some of it too is there's a lot of mythologies about brand and branding anyway, even in corporate environments, or people that are seasoned, entrepreneurs. But one of the things that we noticed about startup founders is they're inundated with a lot of different, they're extra inundated with a lot of different information, and that information always contains some bias about branding. And too often we believe as branders that the bias that these people are taught in incubators and accelerators and from mentors and whatnot is that it's a very 20th century view of branding as opposed to a 21st century view of branding. And so we want to sort of correct the record, as it were, about really when to start thinking about branding.
That's right. So before we get too deep into it, that's a little intro, a little teaser for you. We do want to encourage you, whenever you're listening to this webinar, to tweet whatever strikes you, whatever kind of sinks into the gray matter, and please feel free to use the hashtag brand building. We love that hashtag, and we'll be able to spot what you tweet or post on your social platform of choice and then share that out, which you want us to share your stuff, right? Come on. So there is the hashtag there. And we do have a recording that we'll be sending out later on. We invite you also to share your comments and questions. You can do that via Twitter. You can do that via the question panel in GoToMeeting. Or if you are able to and want to direct message us later on, that is our hashtag both on Twitter and Instagram, at Root and River. All right, and we always start with an intention. In everything that we do in Root and River, we feel it's really important to get focused on what we intend, each of us, and collectively. So this is no exception. So today, what is your intention, Justin, for the webinar?
Yeah, my intention is to level set people's understanding, or especially startup entrepreneurs, of what branding really is.
Good one. And for me, my intention is to make some new neural connections so that the thought process around building your business or starting your product or service organization, there is a new neural pathway that involves brand, so that thought occurs earlier. And if it's too late for you, you've already started your company and now you're looping back, that you'll have that information in your mind to share with somebody else down the road. Very brainy today.
Well, yeah, it's very brainy.
Oh, funny.
Wonkish almost.
A bit. I am a bit wonkish. So, which came first, Justin, the product or the brand? What say you?
Well, Emily, it's both. It's a biological miracle, but it does come from the same place. And so the first thing that we want to point out is that brand is not a linear activity. It's executed over a timeline, but it's really, we see the spark of the idea that you had for your product or service is the same time your brand was born. They come from the same place. and so when you understand that, I mean, sometimes we say it this way, is that your brand is just how other people experience your mission on this planet. And we too often detach brand from the product and say, well, this is the idea, and then brand is seen as packaging. And we say it's the same thing.
Hmm. Definitely. I mean, brand is also the way your products make people feel. So again, we see that intersection, that weaving of both the product and the brand. Impossible to identify which came first. Immediately when you put a product or service out there, you have a perception, you have an experience in the mind of the user, and that really is the essence of your brand.
Hmm.
And also, brand is the people that you attract. And again, that happens organically once you start to formulate your ideas. It happens with the people that you draw into your company, and it happens in the market as well. Hopefully, if you've got something that's worth sharing.
Exactly.
All right.
So just to reiterate, these are the three things that we think that you need to rethink about brand, is shift your brain around in order for you to understand or have a bit of a revelation, as it were, about what your brand really means.
Hmm.
And so the first one is, it's how other people experience your mission and beliefs. We love Southwest. I had an experience. I don't even know if I told you this, Emily. I on one of my mini trips to Phoenix from Austin, I tweeted to Southwest, being TSA pre out south at out Southwest, A-list preferred with a carry-on bag is the closest I've ever come to having a private jet.
Hmm.
And they DM'd me back, or they tweeted back and they said, DM us your frequent flyer number or Rapid Rewards number, and we'll send you something. I thought, I'm going to get some drink coupons and a T-shirt.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they sent me this swag bag full of things like a travel charger, like a travel power pack, a Bluetooth speaker, a bunch of things. And it just, I mean, you talk about a reinforcement of a brand experience, um, and how, you know, their mission, they've never wavered from their mission, since they launched back in the, you know, mid '60s or whenever it was.
They haven't. They carry the spirit of what they set out to do, which I was just reading this the other day that when Southwest started, only 15% of the public traveled regularly, and now
Mm.
and that was part of their mission. You know, that was part of the vision that Herb Kelleher had to start giving people the power to travel, to be there for occasions. And now I believe that stat is closer to 75, 80%. So it's neat. It's neat to see that and fulfilling their mission, but they continue to do it with that same passion and appreciation for the customer. It's very rare, right?
Exactly.
All right. So let's move now deeper into the second idea, that brand is the way your products make people feel. I think a great example of this is Dove, and they've done this so successfully, and they've been very consistent about it over the years. So they have a variety of products, and it would be easy to get distracted by the products that they put out. But instead, they focused on a core idea and tapped into really the way that the products make real people feel. Instead of manufacturing something that is featuring models and really focusing on some manufactured reality, they dug into the real people and connected with feeling beautiful, regardless of size, regardless of whatever background, regardless of even income level. Their products are pretty reasonable and affordable for all people. And they extracted from them, you know, you've seen them in commercials where they do the shower test with real people, and then the print ads, they focus on how the products make their skin feel and how they make individuals feel beautiful inside and out.
Hmm.
So it's a great way of a brand. It's a great example of a brand tapping into that sense of emotion and then showing that to the greater market. It's just really, isn't it a neat one? I love it. It's very
It's,
positive too.
it's very positive, and one of the things about this idea of how you make people feel, and this leads into our talk in a little bit about mission, but um, when you make people feel different, feel more accepted and more loved about who they are, that is always good for your brand. There was a post I shared out on social about how to less systems and more love in the workplace, as an example.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because love is one of those feelings, just even at a chemical level, that is nothing can compete with that feeling. Um,
Yeah. And
and,
love for
and
oneself is really what they're tapping into here.
exactly,
It's
which is
really
like
more
the
powerful.
deepest part of
Mm,
someone.
for sure.
And the next one
Yes.
is about Samuel Adams. Now, I like Shiner Bock, but Samuel Adams is a good backup. And
Hmm.
this is the CEO of Sam Adams Brewery. And there's many, many things about him that I think are intriguing, as he would have been a good example of our Awake Leaders webinar that we did
Hmm.
last month. But anyway, the idea here is that he built a company from the very beginning, back in the 70s, to attract a certain type of person to the company from an employee standpoint, even a vendor standpoint, and then of course a customer standpoint. And you mentioned him setting an intention. It was an intention of him that from the very beginning of his company, that the way he was going to run the company was going to attract a certain type of people.
Hmm.
And we have a client, give them a little bit of love, Arrive Logistics here in Austin, that is a new kind of logistics company run by a couple of young guys with an interesting, vibrant culture. But when we met with them, remember they talked about how they were really bringing us in to help scale the culture, knowing that if they scaled the culture, the market would follow. Similar thinking to Sam Adams.
That's right. And they're a startup too. And they came to start thinking about brand as their company began to grow, and they were bringing in more people right at this pivot point. And as you bring more people into your organization, it tends to be that startup leaders realize, oh, if we don't have this standard of beliefs and and standards inside of the organization for how we're going to operate, it's going to be very difficult to keep the feeling of what we've built from this point. And that is all brand for us in our minds.
Exactly.
Hmm. All right. So moving on. Let's go a little bit deeper on mission. I know you love this picture.
I do. I mean, it's one of the most iconic pictures. I remember seeing it as a kid. Um, this is General Eisenhower, who was responsible for the Eastern Theater during the top general, top officer responsible for the Eastern Theater and the European Theater in World War II. And this is right before D-Day, and he's addressing the 82nd Airborne. Um, and and so it was a reminder. This picture is a reminder of the power of a mission. And not to turn it into a history webinar, but what the Allies sought in World War II with both Germany and Japan was unconditional surrender. That
Mm.
was their mission.
Hmm.
And liberating, all battle plans were set towards that true north. And it gave the soldiers on the front lines, the people at home, the leader, elected officials, and the allies, this place that they could rally around to move, so that from the horrors and the cost of war, they could keep going. And our plea, as it were, to business owners is, without certainly not with as much stakes as the future of democracy at hand, like in this situation, but if it works in the most deepest crisis situations in world history, why wouldn't it work for your business? And too often, mission becomes mission statement, which becomes a cliche, which hangs on a wall and gathers dust emotionally and literally.
Hmm.
But real mission is that true north.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's look at some reminders about mission and why it has this power in your business, in your startup. So first of all, your mission doesn't move, like the example Justin just talked about. Um, all of the leadership in the military during World War II was very clear, unconditional surrender. It's not something that shifts. It's not something that you have to recalibrate every time all the leadership gets back together. Your mission is the focal point that you can chart off of. And if you are the leader, this gives you a lot of focus and clarity for making every type of decision in your startup as it grows. So it's a home base. It's the fixed point on the horizon from which you can navigate.
Mm-hmm. The second one is that mission helps you hire. Now we touched on this about your brand attracts a certain people, but your mission then becomes an attractant for who you hire. It helps you hire, and it gives you a different baseline to benchmark against, not just fit for job, but you're looking in this case for fit for culture. Boise State football has a term OKG, which is our kind of guy, and it's their makeup as a human being, not their athletic ability. Not that they don't want people with athletic ability, but it's a specific mission. But that their mission has them self-select who is right for the culture.
Mm-hmm. And the last one is your mission helps you sell. So you may think that mission is something that maybe resides only within the heart of the leadership and among the leadership, or maybe the full organization, something that's handed out in the employee handbook when you start working there and is sort of a hidden thing. Well, we recommend that your mission really guides you. It's a public announcement, and when you translate your mission into a message, you can begin all conversations, whether they're sales conversations or what have you, with your mission. And ultimately, people don't buy what you're selling, they buy why you're selling it. And when you provide that why and those beliefs up front, you're going to build a relationship with your audience that is trust-based, which, as we know, if we've studied sales, that's the first step to gaining a sale. So your mission is always there for you to help you begin the conversation, even a sales conversation.
And you'll find this shocking, but your business model isn't that interesting.
No, it's not.
But everyone's mission is, and we touched on this in a prior, I think it was one of our tip of the week videos, is this idea of being radically different or a little bit better. And mission makes you radically different when you organize around it. When mission is relegated to, again, that sort of internal thing that's, chanted at mandatory chanting at company meetings, then it doesn't help you sell, because now you have to move away from contemporary branding, which is about inspiration and invitation, and go back to that sort of blunt force trauma of manipulation and persuasion. And that mission then allows you to stand out in a very authentic way.
Mm-hmm. And you can invite people into it. You invite them to pursue the mission with you. Tom Shoes does this really well.
Right.
All right. Passing the 6-second rule. So this goes to visuals. And we have 3 tips for you on your visual brand. We really want to give you some ideas that you can use in your business. But basically, your audience, when they are presented with your message, your mission, your marketing campaign, you've got about 3 to 6 seconds, and that time has been collapsing over the years. It used to be about 10 seconds, and now if it's in a digital format, we're looking at 3 to 6 seconds for people to process the visual brand. Luckily, your brain works very quickly, but it requires that you as a brand must have your visual brand not just looking good, but also appealing to your audience in a way that's very rapid and quickly creates a deep emotional impression in the brain. So the first thing it needs to be is simple. And we use the example of Warby Parker here. I love Warby Parker. It's a great brand experience. Is there anything fancy about this logo? No. It's a font treatment. It's very simple. Every once in a while you'll see it with the emblem of a pair of eyeglasses next to it. In any case, it's very simple for the mind to absorb and connect. And when I see this, I think of walking into the store because they have one here in Scottsdale where I live, and all the books, and it just gives me a feeling of relief and happiness.
Hmm. Yeah, and a couple of real quick before we go to the next one,
Hmm.
just looping back, and you brought up a really good point. Looping back to what we'd said earlier about what a brand is, and you think about the brand, just the overall brand test of for someone like Warby Parker and the other examples we're about to show, but Warby Parker it produces a feeling. And it's an interesting thing. Just I'm going to reverse engineer this. I've tried Warby Parker. I've got this big giant head that the glasses don't fit me. They don't have any glasses that fit me. And I was so disappointed because I love what they stand for and I love the way they made me feel. And going into their cool, like at South by Southwest, their Airstream trailer. But no man, I've tried on so many different types of Warby Parker glasses and I still got a fat head. And so it's not, and so that idea that even though it was something simple, just eyeglasses, it was aspirational. I wanted to participate in that feeling that other people had about Warby Parker.
Mm, cool. Good story. All right, the second thing is that the visual brand needs to be a bit unexpected. So anytime you can create intrigue or delight, which delight comes from something being surprising, is a beautiful thing. We love Moo here at Root and River. We use them for a lot of our printed products. And if you've ever ordered something from Moo, it's a nice little surprise. You get this beautiful, in our case, we get our little linen box with our cards in it, and the box has a magnet in it that pulls um, that kind of pulls the box shut. So it's very tactical or tactile and delicious that way. And this, if you order mini cards, they come wrapped with this paper wrap around it. At South by Southwest a few years ago, I had my cards actually delivered to me there because they were on site, so they delivered them personally to me and gave me all this swag, like the little box of note cards and fun things like that. So, and they're using humor here as well. Open them quick with that little asterisk, and so it's an invitation to delight, really, and it makes the experience of that brand very memorable.
And it's an example of this phenomena of a blend of art and function called the unboxing. Um,
Hmm.
we do this with Apple products. We unbox the new iPhone or unbox the new MacBook, and what Moo and Apple and others have figured out is the experience that experience after the purchase is one of the best places to create unexpectedness. Because it's interesting, if you go try Moo now, there's really nothing extraordinary about the process of buying. The cards are reasonably priced and the website's easy to use, but there's a lot of sites like that. It's the post-purchase experience that's unexpected. So many lessons there with startups. When you start to get your early customers, shower them with love and delight. And we encourage our clients, the startup clients in particular, to have what we call a RAK budget, R-A-K, which stands for Random Acts of Kindness. And a Random Acts of Kindness budget is just loving your customers up after they buy to reinforce that they made the right decision.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be a budget, really. It can just be a time budget. For example, we were dealing with a startup recently and talking to one of their sales reps who said, hey, you know what? Why don't you talk to our CEO and founder? So we had some time with that person, and it was just a really neat way of making us feel very welcomed, and we got very excited about using their service. So it could just be time for the leadership to call and talk to your new users or your new
Mm-hmm.
purchasers. Mhm.
A great point.
So the last thing that your visual brand needs to be, and do you hear the drop in my voice? Oh, is emotional. And this is the logo or emblem for the World Wildlife Fund. And I don't know about you, I'm not like a huge animal lover, but I love and appreciate animals in nature. But when I see this, it hits an emotional chord for me right away. Um, and it's beautifully designed, very simple. It triggers that emotion, which Emotion is emotion is processed in the reptilian part of the brain. It's the oldest part of the brain. That's where visuals reside. That's where emotion springs from. And so when we create a visual connection that keys into that emotional cord, we really are beginning to build a foundation of trust and openness for you to then invite somebody into the mission, which World Wildlife Fund does very well.
And when it comes to design and designers, this is why we work with designers that are actually artists. They're not just people that know how to use Photoshop and Illustrator and whatnot. Because capturing that emotion, as you just said, Emily, is a level of artistic skill, not a level of tactical skill. And this is that chance with your brand to inject real art. And I can give you many examples. It wouldn't take long going through the App Store or various tools that are tech tools where you can tell they have they're engineered centric and not brand centric, which is the product is functional, but the logo sucks. And it's the logo and the packaging of any product that verifies the contents. Now, engineers will point out, or engineer-centric people will point out, well, there's a lot of things that look good on the outside, but they suck on the inside. And yeah, that's true, but that's no excuse for you to have a crappy logo.
Yeah, what if you had both? What if
What
you
if you had
had
both? Yeah, what would happen?
Yeah. And I just think, this is a great time to reiterate that, startup founders tend to think, well, I can do that later. But it's just so much more powerful. You're missing out on a huge business advantage and opportunity if you get this nailed down from the beginning. Yes, it's going to take a little bit of investment, but the return on investment for the long term, for the life of your business, is huge. When investors or VCs start looking at your startup, they will want this as part of the package, and you will stand out in any kind of either incubator platform or VC conversation if you have your brand visually and foundationally on point.
Exactly. And there's two other kind of tips to play off of the 6-second rule. One is that this string needs to carry out of simple, unexpected, emotional in every touch point of the brand. So it needs to be in your deck, your pitch deck, it needs to be on your website, it needs to be on your business cards. There can't be any breaks in that chain, or that's where skepticism or disbelief starts to creep in. The second thing to do is very practical, is if you are in a startup mode, this is where we do think it's okay to do a little crowdsourcing. And the crowdsourcing isn't, what do you think of my logo? The crowdsourcing is, how does this make you feel?
Right.
And if they start to use words that are similar to simple, unexpected, and emotional, you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, great. All right, so here's another tip for you when it comes to content and when it comes to conversations, because we believe that all brands begin in conversations. So what's essential about that is that you have to tell a story. Again, we're going to repeat ourselves again. Nobody cares about your business model. It's really super uninteresting. But they do care about your story. People care about where you came from, where this idea generated from. And that's what you need to tell them. Your story, if you focus on telling your story, it ensures that you're speaking a language that really appeals to real people in your audience and to their deepest feelings and needs. And there are so many opportunities with startups to tell awesome stories.
And just as an aside to this, sorry for interrupting, as an aside to this idea of storytelling is, yes, you hear this a lot. Oh, we need to get our story out there. But it has to be a real story. I encourage you to Google and just the term short story framework or screenwriting framework. And it's going to have things like setting the scene and character development and adding tension and inciting incident, the appearance of the hero, these various pieces. That's how you know you have a real story. So this isn't, I get a little preachy here, but don't don't mistake telling marketing as just telling that marketing and telling your story are the same thing. It has to be
Yeah.
real.
Right. Absolutely. Great point. All right. So we're going to give you some tips here, additional tips and to that tip. So the first one, the first opportunity is to promote the team behind the product. And this is the team at Buffer, I believe.
That's correct.
And so they do a really great job of this. They introduce their staff. They grew from a very small team. When I first started using Buffer, I think the team was maybe at least half the size. So they're growing rapidly. Um, and they use a lot of different methods of storytelling about the team to share what the product and what that mission is all about.
Hmm. One of the things that they do, and I don't know if, I'm sure you've seen these emails, is they send a picture of their team meetings and with a recap of what they discussed,
Yeah, that's so cool.
which is that so almost like director's cut of the brand or going behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
They also prominently feature on their website who their team members are and their role, and there's always something quirky and unique about them. And Buffer's not the only one that does this, but they're really good at it, and they've been doing it. They've been doing it a long time. And here's the thing: promoting the team behind the product is one of the most scalable storytelling things you can do. It doesn't matter if you've got 100,000 employees; you can talk about the team behind the product.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
IBM is another example that does this, where in their marketing, they show real people. Back to Sam Adams, they show real brewmasters that work for them. They're not actors.
Mm-hmm.
Southwest Airlines uses their real employees in their advertising. Walmart, a controversial brand, Walmart uses in their print ads that they put in the Sunday paper, they use real employees, and it's got their name and what store they work out of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different ways to do this. It just requires you genuinely have to love your people, and then it's natural. Then we naturally promote that in whom we love.
Yes, good point. All right, so the second tip for you is to share your mistakes. Now, this may strike you the wrong way. Like, no, we can't share our mistakes, especially if we're building a service-based product. I'm here to tell you that is actually wrong. That thought is incorrect. Sharing your mistakes makes you more human. It gives people to access you because we've all made mistakes and we all have that feeling of, oh man, I messed it up. But if you share your mistakes, you're going to endear yourself to your audience. So you can, write about the things that went wrong. Write about early endeavors. Share about early endeavors or prototypes that never kind of made it to market. It is probably one of the easiest things to do because, as we know, we all make a lot of mistakes. I had a recent example of this. I was using a personal assistant app, and I actually scaled back because I wasn't scheduling enough meetings. And they wrote me a note, and they talked about all the things that had gone wrong in the early iterations of their service. And the CEO, admitted that it wasn't good enough, and they had to kind of go back and rewrite code and start from the bottom up. And it was very forthcoming about all the mistakes that they had made, and it just endeared me to them. I was like, this took courage, first of all, and now I can't wait till I'm busy enough again to be scheduling more meetings. I'm definitely going to use them again. So it showed their intent, it showed their determination, and their grit.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's a great story. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of, before we move on, there's a couple of additional things to do if you're the founder. And if you combine these two things of promote the team and share your mistakes, is a sign of a great leader when you celebrate and we'll talk about celebrating successes in a minute, but when you promote the people who made you successful, and then you take public accountability for your failures.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different examples of this, but to the point of sharing your mistakes, yes, show the prototype, show the junk code that didn't work, all that, because that's interesting. It's flavor. It's anything too neat and too packaged just isn't all that unexpected, to be direct about it. But some of the biggest mistakes that founders make, they make themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And being transparent and vulnerable and open to the fact that you made a mistake in a hiring decision, you made a mistake with, who you took VC money from, or you made a mistake with inside of your family by working too many hours. Whatever it is, that's the stuff of story. Not the manicured lawn that a lot of CEOs try to put out as a figment of reality. Reality is much messier and much more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. All right, and Justin alluded to this, but celebrate team successes. Um, this is huge. Even if they're a small, I mean, it doesn't have to be an NCAA championship here, folks, but small team successes, bigger organization-wide successes. We sometimes hear from clients, well, I don't want to toot my own horn, I don't want to promote myself too much. It's really not that, and it does go to tone and how you present it, but we all know that feeling of striving after something and then getting there. And that is a beautiful thing to share. Again, it opens up your humanity. It does make you vulnerable, which is a beautiful thing as well. It's a courageous thing, as Brene Brown says, to do. And recently a friend of ours is a co-founder or the founder of Genability based out of San Francisco, and they work in the solar space providing information to solar and other clean technology providers. And on LinkedIn, he wrote this glowing post about how his team had overcome this sudden change and did it in a very quick, efficient, and happy way. And he named all the people that played a part in the role in this overcoming this obstacle. And I just thought it was super intriguing. It made me actually kind of dive in a little bit deeper to what the company was all about. I just had a surface level understanding of it, and it stood out in that stream of advice giving and sort of bland topics. So I really suggest that you try this.
Mm-hmm. And this is South Carolina. They won their very first national championship. And it just, that's a feat unto itself, of course. And there are so many championship moments inside of organizations. And it's something that I actually learned from you, Emily, which is to celebrate the victories. There's a tendency in that entrepreneurial mindset just to go, go, go. Okay, we climbed that mountain. What are we going to climb next? But to just pause for a moment and bask in a little victory, especially when you combine it with talking about the mess and the mistakes and promoting the team that got you there. Those are the elements of a true saga, a true story that when you begin to tell it, it writes its own headlines. It creates its own viral nature. There's so many things you can do. There's so many things you can do with story when you allow the ingredients to unfold as they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm. And also, just for you as a leader, it gives you a moment to pause, as Justin said, and recharge your battery a little bit with this success. And you deserve that. You're working hard. We get it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, open discussion question time. I love seeing cursive. That's nice on that board behind the teacher. That beautiful cursive handwriting is going away. Makes me sad. So a lot of times people come to us and they agree with everything that we're saying, but they have no idea on where to start. And so that's a common question we get, Justin, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, we believe that you start in your own heart. And, you take a couple of starting points is you have to really give space to examine what your true mission is. Your mission, you can say, well, we want to build a successful company, or that's not a mission, that's an intention. There's something that resides in you that requires a bit of your attention in order for it to poke its head out and say, yeah, this is the mission. And to be prepared in this starting point that what you think your mission is in your head isn't what it is. And it may not even match your business model. It may be something that you hadn't even thought of before, but makes the starting point is to make space in yourself to let your mission come forth.
Hmm.
Um, Another thing that we say is that you need to, if from a pure tactical standpoint, if you were to obsess and overthink and one thing, it's your message. Your message is magic, as we blogged about last week. Your message is like magic to opening the heart and the mind and the soul of the audience. So at the same dedication you give to getting a product out the door, give it to message as well. And it's interesting about message, though, it's sort of like cutting your own hair. You really do need that outside archaeologist, as it were, to help you uncover the message, because we believe it's already inside of you. It just sometimes a little help getting it out and articulating it.
Hmm. Hmm.
You often talk about and I would just throw it back to you. I'll cue you up here, but on the team, the
Hmm.
starting point of the type of team that you surround you with. Can you speak to that?
Sure. I mean, it's important as a founder that you have a team that obviously believes in that mission. But more than that, that they are individuals with the character and the courage to hold you accountable to it. Because we're all distracted humans who sometimes want to move in a different direction or, kind of stray from the path a little bit. And so it's vital to have a team surrounding you that can challenge you, that
Mm-hmm.
can refocus you on the mission, that can even maybe you're espousing the mission, but they see an inconsistency or they see a hole. And so you want to create a culture also, not just the individual, and place all the pressure on them to speak up. It's vital for you as a leader to create a culture where questioning is acceptable, where tension is invited to the meeting, and that is really part of what um, a healthy culture that is mission driven
Mm-hmm.
is. So look for individuals that can challenge you.
And I would add to that, it's a really good point. I would add to that, when you're selecting your team, your leadership team, your dev team, your marketing team, whatever, all of that, it's okay to hire people that don't have the same expectations of you as you. You're the founder. You got a lot more at stake. But where founders begin to have an erosion of brand and clarity is when they hire people that have lower standards than they do.
Mhm.
Because high standards people, or people with similar standards to you, are the ones that are going to challenge you.
Mhm.
And they're going to say no. And they're going to say, I don't think that's the right fit or the right idea. But that's where that comes from.
Yeah. So similar to that, or kind of bouncing off of that, what then is the CEO or founder's role in branding as a startup? What do you think?
Well, I think every CEO is the chief branding officer. I'll just put it
Mhm.
that way.
Okay.
The term we use is face of the brand. Now,
Right.
you don't see that. You see it more and more. You see more like Richard Branson and Mark Cuban and Jessica Alba kind of being the face of it. Um, and the new CEO, or the newish CEO of uh, Walgreens, not Walgreens, but the other one, CVS. He's become much more high profile. But the traditional mindset of a startup, and we see this even today with some of the people we work with, is they want to work behind the scenes and then have someone else be the face. But when you relegate that, you relegate a tremendous opportunity to have your personal brand also lift up your business brand. Um, and
Mhm.
it allows you to talk about your ideas and your values and your personal mission, not just your business mission, and it gives a face to the idea.
Mhm.
Um, you got to be careful though that you don't, as time goes on, and this happens in companies that go from startup to super successful, is it produces a sort of cult of personality of the founder.
Right.
But if you surround yourself with people with high standards, that's less likely to happen.
Well, and if you also do what we said earlier about storytelling and share the stories of the entire company and, talk about successes,
Yep,
that is mitigated, certainly.
exactly. One other question that just came that comes through to us a lot is, especially on this topic, is what is the point of no return? Is it too late? I mean, a lot of people listening to this may go, well, shoot, well, we should have done, what Emily and Justin said, months ago. What now? Well, you wouldn't be the first company to reintroduce yourself, and I think that's the mindset. Is
Hmm.
the starting is you gotta create a baseline, a benchmark, and we provided some of those today with the mission and the 6-second rule and telling your story. Those are sort of, you can put those together and create a little brand audit of where you're at. And if it's not up to code, as you grow, it will get worse. It's kind of those things when the little annoying things that your boyfriend or girlfriend does while you're dating become the reason you get divorced later on. It's that type of, it's those little things like that aren't right.
Hmm.
They grow into bigger things that erode the brand.
Yeah,
But when you do that, let's say you like, our logos, is not up to code, and maybe our message is too cliche. That's actually an opportunity to just reintroduce the brand with a little fresh coat of paint and a more articulate message. And the audience is generally quite forgiving of that, and maybe it's an opportunity for delight. Um,
absolutely. And if you're realigning to something, deep, as we suggest, your mission and your message, the audience will sense that authenticity and that depth of thought that you've put into it, and they're going to be very open to that.
mhm.
Um, really, hey, my dad always used to tell us, today is the first day of the rest of your life. And today is the first day of your brand for the rest of the life of the brand. And it's never really too late to go back and freshen up and hone. I mean, that is the entrepreneur's life, right? Honing away and making your product or your service even better and better. So we invite you to take that drive that you've applied to your business and also apply that to your brand.
Exactly. And I think kind of summarizing all of that, those type of questions, is this idea that um, a brand is a bit like a flywheel, and once you get it spinning, it almost then becomes a perpetual motion machine as long as the same conditions apply. And so that like you talked about, like Emily, you said about the drive or the spark of the idea or your initial team or your initial customer base. If you keep that newness, and regenerate that newness over and over again, the flywheel begins to spin on its own. It doesn't mean you can walk away from it entirely as a founder. It just means that if you put the effort in at the beginning, you'll be able to. It'll be a little bit easier on the back end.
Hmm. Definitely. Well, we've really enjoyed the time with you today, so thank you again for listening and diving into these ideas with us. If you want more, we've got more. You can always visit rootandriver.com and subscribe to our newsletter. We send that out twice a month and share some thoughts on branding in general. We're always available on social media at Root and River, and then individually as well, Faces of Our Brand, via Twitter and Instagram, Emily at Large, and Foster Thinking for Justin.
Awesome.
And
Thank you for tuning in. We always love feedback. So if you're listening to this live or the recording of it and you have ideas on what we could do to make this better, or more useful, or you just want to share your thoughts, please just reach out to us.
absolutely. Well, thank you all, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Have a great day.